Doechii is living proof that it takes 10 years to be an overnight success and that the universe is preparing you for your moment, even when you don't realize what that moment actually is yet. Because in just these past 4 years alone, this girl has been cheated on, had her entire house vandalized and destroyed, suffered from alcoholism, drug addiction, and despite all of that, she never stopped creating art.
I'm hungry. I want to be the best. If I have 2 days, if I have 24 hours, I'm going to work my hardest to make the best performance because I want to be the best, period.
And what's so beautiful about Doechii's story is that this adversity did not set her back. In fact, it was writing about it and creating music as a form of therapy, documenting these stories that is making her have her biggest moment of her career. She is living proof of the power of music to be this conduit for emotional expression. It is these trials and tribulations of life that connect us all as people through these moments of raw vulnerability. Her superpower as an artist is to not shy away from that vulnerability, but in fact, use it to connect with millions of people across the world who have all experienced the same thing. And while Doechii may be a new name to many of you, she has been working at this all her life. She's been a singer since she was a child, a rapper since she was a teenager, putting out music since she was 16, and at one point, even a YouTuber. But this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the story of her artistry. In this week's episode, we will analyze the untold lore of Doechii, covering all of that adversity and her journey through the music industry that got her to the moment she is experiencing today. Welcome back to Nicky at Night. I am your host, Nicky Burden, and I'm so excited to talk about Doechii this week. I have been a lover of Doechii for a little bit, and I feel like she has been one of those names that was like a if you know type artist for a while, but because she didn't have an album and she just done a lot of singles and EPs, I feel like she never really had a huge like mass following or mainstream moment until now. And it feels like it's really starting to happen for her with the Best New Artist nomination, the Tiny Desk performance, the Stephen Colbert performance. Like, finally, I think people are starting to realize that. And I also just think this project, Alligator Bites Never Heal, was really her finding her lane as an artist, which is something I really want to talk about later on, and really like honing in on this ethos of who she is and her story, and that has created this narrative for people to really resonate with. And I think it's something that is so cool to see. So with that, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, follow the Spotify if you haven't yet, join the Discord. We are so close. Our goal on Spotify and Apple Pods is 10,000 followers. I think we're at 7,000 right now. So hey, check it out. Make sure you haven't subscribed to the YouTube. We're on the road to 100K. And thank you all for being here. So with that, let's dive in. And I really want to start with her origin story before I start talking about her most recent mixtape, Alligator Bites Never Heal, because I think so much of this project is an autobiography, truly. Like, it is so much tied into her experiences in the music industry. It is this prolonged motif of Florida where she was born and raised. So with that, she was born in 1998. She's only 1 year older than me, which is insane. And she was raised in Tampa, Florida. She put out her first song in 2016 called Girls on SoundCloud. Then in 2020, she created her first EP titled Oh, the Places You'll Go. This was the EP that got her discovered for her first record deal with Top Dog Entertainment, which is a label that is a subsidiary of Capitol Records, I believe. And they have worked with artists such as Kendrick Lamar, SZA, Schoolboy Q, especially in their early years. I feel like they have a knack for like discovering these big artists very early on. And Doechii is actually the first female rapper they've ever signed, which is very cool. So in that label, 2021, she releases her second EP, Braless. Also the same year, she opens for SZA. Her and SZA are very good friends, which is so cool. And in this era, 2020 and 2021, she really started to have like her first TikTok viral songs. The first was Yucky Bucky Fruitcake.
My name's Doechii with 2 eyes. I feel anxious when I'm high.
Persuasive.
How does it feel to be you? How does it feel to be you?
Stress.
Sabotaging me till I'm busted with the mask off. This lobotomy's just reflection of the last law.
And What It Is.
What it is, ho, what's up?
What It Is, I think, was really the biggest one. Also, then this had a Kodak Black feature, and that blew it up even more. And I feel like What It Is was her really starting to permeate the mainstream in a lot of ways, or at least this song had such a huge moment. And I think what's interesting about this song is it is full singing. Like there is no rap at all. And while her most recent mixtape is very rap heavier leaning, something she has always said that she never wants to be just one. She wants to be a rapper and a singer. And when I talk about a lot of her musical inspiration that she's talked about, like Outkast and Lauryn Hill, Missy Elliott, they are all like rappers and singers. And I think that that is such a cool void to be filling in the music industry right now. Like I can't really think of many artists who I would say feel like a Outkast or making albums like The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Like it's just not something I think a lot of people are doing right now. I feel like female rap has skewed a lot more like rappers, and then we have a lot more singers. You know, there's not this intersection of much anymore. And what I love is that when you can do both, you transcend just one genre. Sometimes it can lean R&B, it can lean pop, it can have these moments of like very soulful infusion, but because of that, they develop such a unique style and personal flow. I think just when you have this intersection of genre, it really showcases the power of storytelling, because at the end of the day, a great song is a great story, and you have to tell that story through song. And it transcends that. Like from my youth, like one of the albums that always like really stuck with me, I remember in high school, was like, 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. And I feel like at that time, I didn't listen to as much like hip hop or rap and whatnot, but I visibly remember the song No Role Models on that album is J. Cole talking about his lack of a father figure and just his experiences not really having a prominent male role model in that way. And my dad, while present in my life, was very toxic and just very conservative and very outwardly homophobic, just a very hateful person at heart in many ways. And while I do think he loved me, he was not a role model I wanted to look up to. And we had a lot of disagreements at that, especially after I came out or when I was, discovering my identity in that way. And it was very interesting to me because I felt like having that bad role model made me realize the type of role model and father figure I wanted to be. And although my life and experiences is very not the same as J. Cole's was, and not exactly the same that he was singing about in that time, like the story resonated with me is what I was trying to say. Even though I was not a massive consumer of the genre at that time, like that story was something that I really latched onto, and especially in that time of my life when I was like balancing this, like kind of becoming an adult and having some self-autonomy, but not fully. And, you start to have some friction with your parents around that like early teenage age. And I think that is like a really amazing thing about Doechii as an artist. Like she has this narrative and storytelling that reminds me of like very early Kendrick even, and her ability to like convey emotion that's so raw and vulnerable, but it can like tiptoe her way through a few different genres and a few different sounds and a few different flows. And I think make people able to discover the music more and then in turn love the genre more, which is really, really cool. But after that and her first initial viral success, she's talked a lot about how in the music industry, when you're signed to a label and something works, they want you to do it again, right? Naturally. It is a tough thing too. Like, I don't think they're necessarily wrong for doing that. It's a business. They want to make money, and also they want to make you the biggest artist that they can possibly get. Like they're not doing it out of malicious intent. They're doing it out of a desire for your success. And if they see something work, their initial instinct is going to be, how do we do that again? How do we craft an album around that? How do we craft a visual around that? But Doechii has said that at that time, she really felt like she outgrew that sort of type of sound. And weirdly, this viral success started to influence how she was making music. She felt like she was trying to make a song that didn't feel like it was what she was emotionally feeling in that moment. She was trying to recreate these moments of her past. And as she grew and changed and had new experiences, that wasn't who she was at that time, which I think is a really interesting thing to think about. It doesn't mean never, it just means not now. And I think Doechii has, a lot of, again, like what it is just, it's a singing song. Like she is singing. And I think that that is something she does integrate into this album a little bit, especially in the later half of it. But right now she said she was feeling angry and wanted to like get it out. And that's really what this, mixtape became. So also through this, she was a YouTuber, which was really, really cool. I love to see people, and I don't just even mean like making song covers on YouTube. I'm talking like beauty tutorials. I'm talking like vlogs all of those things. So I think it's awesome to see. One, it really shows when somebody's, I think, like a creative at heart. This idea and desire to just explore as many mediums as possible is beautiful. And even if she wasn't trying to be like a career YouTuber, I think that's great. And I think also such an important way of building a fandom, you know, like it's great that there is this outlet for people to not just love the art, but love the artist, you know, like loving who she is as a person and finding her sense of humor and her mannerisms and her tastes. Like that is really, really cool. And also, again, one of those things I feel like always, it ages well in a cool way, you know, like when she's having this big, massive success, seeing her like on a tiny little camera in her bedroom is just awesome. And again, I think it shows that like at the end of the day, really what she is this creative at heart. So that takes us to 2023. And she said that this was one of the darkest years of her life. In fact, she was working on her album and couldn't get through it all the way. After her, you know, initially getting signed and having the, you know, big first EP release under a major label, she said that she really fell into this Hollywood life of like partying and doing drugs and meeting people and doing the things. And also, I mean, she's my age essentially. So I think that's a trap we all fall into, you know, especially with people who pursue careers in music. Oftentimes, like for me, like that was like school. Like my school years were like my partying, like I want to get it out, you know? And then like I did that, it wasn't there, you know. Now in my like young adult life, like I'm good. Like I go out a little bit, but like it's not how I was. And I think an interesting thing of like when these people don't have that or have that like era of their life, when they start to have success, they really like turn to that. And she said that this ended up resulting in her with like full-blown alcoholism and drug addiction. And she had this incredible quote in the Zane Lowe interview where she said, "I got to the point where I couldn't create music without drinking in the studio. That was my breaking point, where I had forgotten the source of my creativity, the source of who I am. I was looking for things outside of me to be myself. That's weird." And I thought that was so interesting, this idea for looking for things outside of me to be myself. And I think you can even extrapolate that onto more than just, you know, like drugs and alcohol. While a major crutch that people use in that way, you could even say this with people who shop online all the time or feel like they have to go to the gym and look a certain way. Like this idea of like, I don't feel like who I am as a person unless I have this external source of thing that really has nothing to do with me at the end of the day. That is what makes me who I am. That is how I feel in my self-identity. It's such an interesting concept, and I think something we all struggle with in our own unique way of not feeling like ourselves unless we have blank thing. And for her to realize that, I think is a really deep introspective moment too, and to think about, like, even I have had many times in my life, you know, where I couldn't feel like myself unless I was doing this thing or being with this person or at this place or drinking or doing drugs, like all of it. And that informed the entire writing process for this mixtape. She had also said that she was trying to, you know, like write an album. There was so much like pressure to like, what is the story and what is the sound going to be and how is it cohesive? But when she changed that to just doing a mixtape, in her mind, that like removed all these like creative restrictions that you think about. And honestly, I really get that. It's funny too, because I would argue that in this era of streaming, like a mixtape and an album are essentially the same thing. You know, it's like one cohesive piece that is sold on vinyl and has more than 10 songs on it. Like, what is the difference between the two? You know what I mean? But interesting that change in perspective changed mental perspective as well. So did you know that Doechii wrote this entire album in 30 days? She literally set a 30-day timer and said, no matter, I'm done with the lyrics, I'm done with the singing, I'm done with the production, I will not tweak anything. After 30 days, it is done. What I have, I am putting out. And this is the power of restriction in artistry, that when you're a creative, you have an unlimited amount of ideas in your mind and you overthink them to the point of when you dislike them altogether. But when you set a restriction, it actually can help you create even more. Like something I always say is imagine your art as a blank canvas, right? If someone handed you a blank canvas and a bunch of brushes and said, paint something, you'd be like, well, what do I paint? What do you like? What do you want it to look like? Blah, blah, blah. You would have no idea. But if I handed you that blank canvas and I said, paint something blue, you would go, okay, blueberries, ocean, the sky, water, whatever, right? Like by placing a restriction, it weirdly helps you focus, and that focus actually makes you have an increase in creative output. This restriction leads to a deeper, more concentrated flow of like creative ideas and energy. And I think that is such an interesting phenomenon that sometimes we let perfect progress get in the way of progress, that we want to make something, we want it to be well received and people to like it and us to be proud of it. So we spend so much time thinking about it and overthinking it and then finishing it, but then going back and wanting to tweak it, blah, blah, blah. And all that time you spent trying to make something perfect is time you could have spent just making more progress. And at the end of the day, like perfection is a result of progress. Perfection is never a goal that can be attained. It's a subjective concept. But if you keep progressing and keep getting 1% better every day, eventually you will make something out there that other people will be like, that's perfect. I love that. And I think that is so cool that she was in this deep, in recovery. She had stopped drinking, she had stopped doing drugs, and was like, I need to set this time limit on myself, and I need to do whatever I can in this amount of time, and I'm just gonna put it out, whatever that emotional feeling is. And I think when we really get into like the nitty-gritty of this album, you see how raw that emotion was. And I'm not sure that's something that she would have been able to convey had she been working on it for a year and a half, 2 years, as many album cycles are. It was almost this time limit made it so she had no choice but to be as raw and vulnerable and emotional as humanly possible. Like there was no time to overthink it or overanalyze it. And I think that is really what makes this project so amazing, even down to the album title. This entire mixtape is this prolonged motif of Florida with song titles like Catfish, Boiled Peanuts, Fireflies, Bullfrogs, Stankapoo was her childhood nickname, right? Even the title, Alligator Bites Never Heal. Alligator being this symbolism of Florida, and the bites being these emotional things she went through, these scars of her childhood, of generational trauma, of friendships, of her relationships, and how those things never fully heal, but also they are what made her the person that she is today. And she had this quote that said, I'm not just the wounded, I am the gator. And I love that, right? Like you're not just these wounds that you experience don't make you. Sometimes you also can be like the predator, the confident and the driven and the one who is going out there and taking what they want, That's what I think of when she says, I'm not the wounded, I am the gator. And I think that this is again, such a like beautiful autobiography of who she is, right? Like a song title like Boiled Peanuts is such a thing to like, the American South, like it's not something that everybody else is going to get the reference to, and that's fine. What it's meant to show is that she is somebody who does get that reference. She is somebody who grew up with that life, with that experience. And I think that you really learn about her through that. And there is no greater example on this album than Denial is a River. Denial is a River is an autobiography put into song. She talks about a relationship, getting cheated on, the breakup, him vandalizing her entire apartment and destroying everything she owns, an alcohol addiction, a drug addiction, having viral success with her music, then experiencing the pressures from the industry about said viral success. Like she is taking it back to the roots of hip hop, being this conduit for emotional expression and raw storytelling, talking about her feelings and being honest with what she is going through to connect with us as people. And she personifies that through this song in this format of like a mock conversation with her therapist, which is both funny yet also vulnerable. And Doechii has talked about how she feels like the rap scene right now has this lack of vulnerability. She said, quote, there is this overload of materialism, and you can have pride in what you've gained while still talking about the things you've learned. And I think that's so fascinating that like, there is really this desire, especially when you've come from like really difficult circumstances and you've made it, to have that thing of like, yeah, I want to show all the people who doubted me wrong. Like, I get that, we all get that. But it's also beautiful to see somebody who's like really having her moment and not just trying to pay it forward, but pay it backwards. Like, this is where I'm from. These are the things that made me. This is the music that inspired me. This is the very small music community of Tampa, Florida that I grew up in and was raised in and contributed to this style of music that is now being shared with millions of people. Like, that is so beautiful and awesome to see. And I love that she's really, really doing that. And I really do feel like the greatest rappers are people who do that so well. Again, like talking about Kendrick, like his lyricism is not just wit and flow, it is storytelling. It is like you get this window into his life, into his experiences, into his emotions. And Doechii is someone who also just embodies that so well. And I think this is really just establishing the importance of your ethos as an artist. And I really want to talk about this concept of like the golden circle, which is actually a TED Talk by Simon Sinek. If you've never seen it, you should watch it. But he talks about it a lot in terms of like business, and I think it really applies to artists as well. And essentially there's 3 layers to your circle. The outer layer is what you do. What you do, everybody knows. You're a singer, you're a musician, you're a rapper, whatever. Congratulations, there's 300 million of you also out there. Being a singer, being a musician is not special. There's a lot of them, right? Second layer is how you do it. That's a little bit more interesting, right? Maybe you have a certain production, maybe you have a certain technique, maybe you like to sample beats a certain way, you have a certain inspiration source that you draw things from. However, how you do it can be replicated by anybody. Anybody can copy that, right? They can copy your flow. They can copy your production. They can copy your inspiration sources. But why you do it is the deepest, most center layer, and it is the most important. Why you do something is this unique piece of your human story that nobody else can replicate, right? It is why you got up in the morning, why you decided to be an artist, why all these life experiences that shaped you into the person that you are today to embark on whatever creative outlet, whatever creative journey you want to go on. Why you do it cannot be replicated by anybody else because they do not have your story. And talking about a song like Denial is a River, right? Like, no one else can write that song. No one else had that exact relationship, that exact breakup, that exact cheating on, that exact TikTok moment fame that turned into a record label deal and that struggle with it and that addiction process. Like, there is no other artist alive who could create a song like that. And it's no shock to me that, of course, that's the one that goes viral and picks up, right? Because it is somehow so uniquely personal, but so vulnerable and raw that it is also relatable to so many people, right? And they may not even relate to all aspects of it. Maybe somebody really relates to the part about getting cheated on. Maybe somebody really relates to the part about addiction. Maybe another person really relates to these struggles with the industry. It doesn't have to fit everybody perfectly, but the fact that people can see that problem, see that adversity, and be like, I'm going through something like that. I've been through something like that. I feel seen by this music is so important. That is the ethos as an artist. And also with music like this, this song really identifies her why, who she is, where she came from, what she's done. Again, even just like the fact that there's references to Florida, the fact that it's so personal. You cannot love that song without loving Doechii as an artist because it's not just like catchy and fun and something you want to listen to just in the shower, but it's like, you know who she is as a person. Again, it is this autobiography through song. Like, it identifies her and what she has done. And that, I think, is why when I like heard that song for the first time, I was like, this girl has it. Like, she is going to be huge because it's not just you like the song, but you love the artist. And it's so cool to me that this is really the song that blew up. I mean, I feel like it really started with the Stephen Colbert performance. And did you know that Doechii choreographed the entire Colbert performance by herself? And it was the first time she had ever choreographed anything in her entire life. And she did it in 4 days. Planned the entire thing, rehearsed it, perfected it in 4 days. And that is, talk about an artist, dude. Oh my God. Because I mean, that performance, like the movements, everything was so fascinating. And in interviews, she talked about how the point of the choreography was intentionally not to be sexy. The outfits weren't meant to be super revealing. She wanted people to focus on the music, not just her as an artist. That's also why all of the girls are meant to look identical, right? They have the same hair, they have the same thing. At points, you even lose who she is in the performance. And that was done by design because the point is it doesn't matter who she is. What matters is what you're hearing and the story that you're hearing. And God, that is like so brilliant and so fascinating to me. Like, I just love that she has, again, such a clear desire for people to hear her story. She wants people to know who she is. Like, I don't just want you to listen to my music. I want you to understand me on this foundational level because that is why I create the music. And I think that's such an important thing for any artist. Again, before you are going to make the song or think about the music video, whatever, like, why you are doing it, this ethos is the most important thing, because the ethos should inform the lyrics. It should inform what the visual looks like. It should inform how it sounds. Like, this purpose of your artistry and creation is the foundation brick. And if you try to make the music or try to do visuals or any of these things before you've decided that factor, then it's a house built on nothing, a house built on quicksand, especially because that foundation might change. And then we get to the Denial is a River music video. And this was like a spoof of many of the classic like sitcoms, particularly Black sitcoms like Family Matters. And it was just stunning. I mean, honestly, I think it's going to end up being one of the most insane music videos of the year. For sure, one of the most memorable music videos I've seen in so long. And I love how it starts very retro when she's talking about her past. However, once she gets to 2023 and her story of addiction and the music industry, there is this breaking of the fourth wall. Goes from this very, like vintage and retro to modern. The decor becomes modern. Her appearance becomes modern. Literally the camera quality, like, intentionally upgrades, and you see how the camera moves, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's also very, very cool that once she starts talking about this Hollywood life, this concept of, addiction and the music industry, we see the audience for the first time. Like, we see how it's filmed. Sitcoms were filmed in front of these like live studio audiences. And that is not present when she's talking about her past. It is only present when she talks about this idea and concept of being in Hollywood. And I thought that was so, so cool. Like, a very cool visual representation of that. And just, showing like how that literally affected her perception, because now she understands that there's all these people watching her. And in the music video, there are physically these people watching her. Another song on the album I just personally really, really loved was Stankapoo. It is the first song off the mixtape. The title is her childhood nickname, but it is about the concept of death, which I think is very, very fascinating. It is about her fear of dying and this internal turmoil she has over what is a legacy and what will people remember me by, and have I not spent enough time with my family, but also, I'm interested and motivated and hungry for my career. And I think it's so cool that the title is her origin, like her childhood name, but the lyricism and the themes of the song are this hypothetical end that she hasn't even reached yet. Because it shows that, despite all of the things and this concept of legacy and the things that we think about, like, nobody will remember you more. No legacy will ever be more important than your friends and your family and that childhood nickname that everybody knew you by. Those are the people who will remember you and embody your will more than anybody else. Now we get to the future of Doechii. I mean, she is really, I think, like, starting to have this mainstream moment for the first time. Like, she is really, I mean, Kendrick Lamar said that she is the hardest rapper out right now. SZA has been writing for her for a long time, and she's even opened for SZA, and they're just like good friends in real life. Doechii opened for Doja Cat in the past. She had a feature on Tyler's recent album and performed at Camp Flog Gnaw. Beyonce listed her as one of her favorite rappers this year. And also, even I saw like Billie Eilish and Phineas Eilish were like posting on their Instagram stories of them watching her Tiny Desk performance and how amazing it is. And it kind of reminds me, I feel like, of what happened with like Chabo Roan in the beginning, whenever she was like, I'm your favorite artist. And it was like, even though she wasn't this like mass commercial success yet, like, a lot of people in the industry knew her and loved her and were like, oh, she's gonna be it. And I feel like that sentiment is really, really there around Doechii right now. I really hope that she puts out an album finally. I also caught myself messing up the word mixtape and album a lot in this video. It is a mixtape. She identifies it as a mixtape. She's talked about it. And I would love for her to do like a formal album. I think like the beauty of something like a mixtape and EPs is that it is this great way for the artist to like dip their toe into a bunch of different lanes and also just see like what is the world going to resonate with. I think that's a really fascinating thing about this digital age we live in now. Like, you can just put something out and have 15 songs on it, and you think that song 1, 5, and 7 are going to be the songs that people love, and they actually love song 2 and 6 the most, and those are the ones that get millions and millions of streams, and how that can inform your writing process, inform what the next piece of work is going to be. So I am very confident at this point she's going to open for Kendrick and SZA. When I was doing research for this video, I was watching this interview she did on The Breakfast Club. It was a really good interview. You should watch it. And they ask her, like, would you open for Kendrick? Are you going to open for Kendrick? There's a rumor. And like, just the look on her face and the smile, like, I think, you know what, I think it's already like the pens and papers are being written is what I'm trying to say, but she just like can't talk about it yet. And I would love that. I feel like, you know, she has had really big openings before, again, like SZA and Doja, massive artists, but at the time she had no like real solid project, just EPs and like 10 singles. She had put out 10 singles in 4 years. And I think now having that big of an opener, with specifically this mixtape and being able to market it in that way is going to change everything for her. Again, like to equate, not that I think they're similar stylistically, but like Chapel opening for Olivia really like put her onto like the pop girl audience. And I feel like Doechii, who's at this intersection of very like emotional, hard rap and a singer, has, you know, songs again like What It Is. For Kendrick and SZA, like there's no better audience for her. You know what I mean? And God, take my money for that tour, please, bro, please, please. If she is opening, it better be at the LA show, or I'm just gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna cry. But yeah, that is it for the untold lore of Doechii. I hope you guys learned something about her process, and she is really the one to watch right now, dude. I am so excited for the rest of her career. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Spotify, please, 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 please. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye.